Pardon me. Alright, g'day guys, and welcome back to another episode. Going to jump into a bit of a series sort of thing, I think, here. So, been doing a lot of Murray cod fishing lately, travelling to a couple of different dams, predominantly fishing like early morning, late into the arvo, night time, that sort of stuff. So, filming's been difficult, I say difficult, non-existent at the moment. Not through not wanting to do it, but filming in the dark's a bit of a pain. You got gloves and all that sort of stuff. I also don't particularly like watching videos that are filmed in the dark. That might just be a personal thing, but if I feel like I don't like watching it, I'm not particularly going to like to sit there and edit it and that sort of stuff. So haven't a lot of filming about it, but have been sort of picking up a few things. I've done enough cod trips now that I sort of feel like I've got a bit of knowledge under my belt that I could share, and I wanted to do that but didn't want to do it in the form of a completely black video that I just turn a light on when I hook a fish. I don't really feel like you learn too much out of that. So what I thought I might do is a bit of a series I'm going to call Let's Talk. So I'll start with this one, obviously impoundment Murray cod, or big winter impoundment Murray cod. But plan on sort of doing them to break up the fishing videos along the way as well. So a couple of videos, like the best response I've had to videos on YouTube so far seem to be informational style ones, whether they be like a reel review or BFS tackle that's pretty popular at the moment, or I've done a couple of videos on Lake Mondrian that was sort of a bit of a tips and tricks sort of thing, stuff I suggest to take and how to fish up there and that sort of stuff. And they were really good. Mondrian was fishing well at the time, so that sort of drove a lot of that, I believe, but it still had a good response from then too. So people have really liked the videos, got a lot of comments, a lot of questions, that sort of stuff. So kind of thought I might delve into it on the Murray cod side as well. There's lots of guys out there that do great content around cod, sort of lures, when to fish, what to fish, that sort of stuff, that have done it for a lot longer than I have in the dams, that are probably going to be far better at explaining that side of things. But I just sort of wanted to share a few bits and pieces around what I wish I knew before I went cod fishing. So it's been a couple of years now that I've been going to the cod dams, and I feel like I've sort of started to sort of tune it into what makes you comfortable out there and what allows you to fish for long periods of time. But there was definitely times there where I was going out very green and guns blazing and going, oh, I wish I did this and I wish I did this and I wish I took that. So kind of want to share a bit of that information, because like the cod stuff's popular online. You're starting to see more and more of it on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube as it gets colder. So I'm sure there's going to be lots of guys that are going for the first time or have done it a couple of times but are still not quite sure whether there's a bit of head noise there, which you get in a cod dam anyway. But the colder it gets and the darker it gets, those demons really start to scream at you. So this will hopefully keep people on the water longer, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. Like impart you with some knowledge of stuff that might help to keep you out there fishing longer, instead of you going, oh, it's done, like the bite shut down, there's no fish here. Stuff that you might sort of think about, go, oh, maybe there is a fish, we'll continue to push on. You might stay for an extra half an hour, you might donk one. So one fish can make a cod trip. I've even gone and written notes for this. That's how organised I am. So I guess I'll start with, I don't know, a drink. So I guess the main thing that I really wanted to sort of cover in this is, I'll do a run through on gear quite briefly, but the things you should take with you, or things that maybe help to make you more comfortable in the water or prepare you for the cold and that sort of stuff. It probably sounds a little bit ridiculous, and there's going to be some seasoned cod dude out there that goes, oh, as if you didn't know that, oh, why are you sharing this shit, blah, blah, blah. If you're that kind of person, maybe go and find something else to watch other than YouTube, because there's lots of people out there that create free content for you to watch, so you sitting there going, yeah, with shit comments, no one cares, right? That's from everybody that makes YouTube videos. But that's my little rant. How was that? So yeah, cold weather gear. We recently did a trip to one of the dams here in southeast Queensland with a couple of mates, one of which rocked up with a pair of chinos as his cold weather pants, and another that rocked up with a pair of trackies. It's not enough. If you're going to go down there and you're going to fish the hours to grind out and try and catch that big fish, you got to be warm. So a good set of gloves. I'm running snow gear, so like a snow jacket and snow pants, just cheapies from Anaconda. I think the set was like $120, but it's been great. This year I invested in a set of proper Ugg boots, so like top of calf length Ugg boots. I'll chuck a photo in there, or a video in there of them. But the sole on them's rated to like negative 40 degrees, and they've made a huge difference. I bought a cheap pair of snow boots a couple of years ago, and I've just been running them with thick socks, but within 40 minutes of being on the water, your toes are freezing, and the demons start to sort of get louder and louder, and you're going, it's too cold, I can't do this, I want to go home, I want to go back to the cabin where it's warm. If you're warm and you're prepared, it's so much easier to stay out there and keep casting. Like, so much easier. What else have we got on here? Oh, 2 sets of gloves. So like, one set of gloves can keep your hands warm. The second set is for if you get a big fish, it's all well and cool to go, oh, I got cod thumb, but those big fish will tear your thumbs up. If they tear your thumb up and then you got to put it back in a glove when it's sort of bloody and a bit gross, it's not a good time. So a second set of gloves, whether they be another set of warm gloves, or I use a casting glove, like a BKK casting glove, just for grabbing those big fish. When you sort of hold them for a photo, you release them. You don't want to use lip grips on fish of that size. So yeah, pop your jigging glove on, your casting glove, whatever, to hold the fish, release it, save your thumb, dry your hands off, put them back in gloves. Saves those fingertips getting absolutely peppered by the cold. What else have we got on here? Oh, that was another one. This sort of covers a lot of like all night fishing really, but for anyone that's stood on the front of a boat casting lures in the dark, a light of an electric motor is nearly blinding. So what I've done is, and I've seen a lot of people do it, I'm definitely not the person that's come up with this, but a piece of electrical tape. It's quite handy on the motor guides, the way the lights run, that I could tape them so that I can just see like a millimeter at the bottom of each light, so I know when the motor's on, or GPS light flashing or anything like that. But super handy. It's just a bit of black electrical tape, cover your lights, and it's so much easier to stand on the bow of the boat without this blue and green light blinding you in the eyes, and be able to sort of get an idea or get a gauge of what's around you. You'd be surprised how much that little light can affect you when you're standing on the front of a boat trying to cast into the darkness. What else? Yeah, got that. Oh, electric motor remotes or foot pedals. It's an easy thing to say, but get to know where the buttons are on your electric remote. Like, I've run my motor guide for probably 6 years now, maybe 7 years. So I'm at the point where I can drive it through my pocket. I don't run a motor guide, I don't run a remote on a lanyard. I've just got it in my pocket constantly, and I know where the buttons are so I can hit it while it's in my pocket. When you're wearing big, thick gloves, if you're sort of a little bit fumbly with your remote, it's a different story. If it's a foot pedal, they're pretty straightforward if you've got boots on. But if you're running your electric off a remote, it can be quite fumbly with gloves on. You don't want to be taking those gloves off whenever you want to do anything different with your electric remote. So get to know your remote. That just comes with time on the water, but even if you've got to play around with it at the dam during the day, it's definitely something worth knowing how to do before you get out there in the dark and going, oh, I can't drive anywhere, I need to keep taking my gloves off, because your hands will get cold and you will want to be off the water way sooner than you should be. Another bit of info that I sort of think might be helpful to people that are going to the cod dams for the first time, or have been a few times but struggled, is finding fish. So having now run live scope for as long as we have, most banks you'll come across in a cod dam have fish on them. Obviously, like within reason, like time of day and that sort of stuff, the fish will move around a touch. Like they'll come up onto those shallow flats and that sort of thing, early morning, late arvo. They'll still be there through the day, but you definitely don't see as many. But majority of banks you pull up on, especially in prime time, have cod on them, whether they be in 10 metres of water on a hard rock face or on a big open flat. I struggled really badly going to the cod dams from predominantly fishing barra and impoundments, because you travel around a barra dam, and if you sort of know what you're looking for, you pull into bays you think have fish in, and you'll see them on the side scan. So you might see small groups, you might see big groups, but you'll see fish. You don't do that in the cod dams. I've probably seen 3 cod on side scan, I reckon, in the times that I've been going there. And you can drop the scope in and there might be 5 or 6 in the area. It's just, I think the issue is that they sit quite high in the water column so that you don't see them on side scan. They don't throw that nice shadow to give you a picture of a cod like you do with a barra. So once I worked that out, I found it a lot easier to go to blind casting. So to just sling cast around a bay, confident that there was a fish there. Whereas prior to that, I'd roll in, I'd scan around the dam, I'd sort of have a look at areas I thought would be good and would hold good fish, and I'd see nothing. So then would roll out there, in the prime time to fish and just be telling myself, what am I doing? Like, there's no fish here. I haven't seen a thing on side scan. I'm not going to get a bite. But yeah, when you use the scope, there's definitely fish on way more bays than you think there would be. To the point that I would say that 90% of banks, if not more, have a cod on them. So when you're out there, plug away, cast. If you find an area that looks good to you and you're confident, hammer it hard. Get lots of cast in, you're every chance of catching a fish. Not seeing any fish. Oh, good lights. So I've run a heap of torches over the years. Tried spotlights on the front of the boat and that sort of stuff. It can be quite difficult because when you're out there, obviously you're trying to do it in winter. If you get the right conditions, it's foggy, it's calm. It's hard to see anything. This thing, see if there's a model on it. Doesn't look like there is. I'll see if I can find it. Oh no, here we go. LED lens at MH10 has been unreal. So big rechargeable battery on the back. It's got a focus beam so you can have it spread quite wide, or you can focus the beam in. And I've actually been running around with that as my driving light. So instead of having a big torch now, I'm just putting that onto the focused beam and shining that off in front of the boat. It's got 3 settings on it, so a bright, medium, and sort of dimmer light. And it also comes with 2 clip-on attachments, one that's got a red filter and one that's got a green filter. But highly recommend. A good headlamp is worth having anyway for those sort of trips, whether it's you hook a fish and you need some light, or you're landing a fish and like to get him into the net, or even just unhooking him, doing stuff around the boat. But yeah, highly recommend that thing. It's been great. We'll probably go into some gear now, I guess. Start with rods. So do this without taking the tip off. 2 main combos that I run for the dams. Dobbins 795 Champion XP. So that is a 7'9", 15 to 30 pound rod, cast 1 to 5 ounces. We've got a 300 Calcutta Conquest on there. I've recently swapped over to fluorocarbon on this rod. I've caught a couple of fish on it now. I really like it. I sort of wasn't sure. I thought it might have been a bit of a gimmicky thing, but there's lots of dudes that seem to do it. Been fishing big plastics on that, this sort of stuff. And it definitely helps to keep that lure tracking at a certain depth for way longer. So I noticed that I retrieve the lure the whole way to the boat, and then it starts to sort of climb vertical almost once it gets to in line with the rod tip. Whereas when you're fishing on braid, you definitely notice that lure track up and away from the fish faster than it will with the fluoro. So I've quite liked that. Pop him over there. The other one that I'm very fond of is this bloke here. So again, Dobbins Champion Extreme HP. This is the 806 in the long handle. So unreal for slinging big baits around on 20 to 40 pound rod, and this thing will cast 2 to 8 ounces. Old school dial bluebacker base special millionaire on there. That fella's loaded up the 50 pound castaway, and I normally just run a 60 pound leader on it. So you definitely don't need to go that heavy leader wise for the cod as far as fight goes. Trying to not take the tip off this rod on the roof, but get on there. So yeah, you definitely don't need to run that heavy a leader as far as cod fighting goes. They're definitely not the most spirited fighters, especially when it's cold like that. But it's more for cast-offs. So you're fishing with thick gloves on. You do get backlashes from time to time, especially throwing big lures. It's more just an insurance policy that if you're running 20 or 30 pound leader and you've got that backlash with a heavy lure, that's not going to pop and send 60, 70, 80 bucks flying into the darkness. So yeah, massive fan of those two. The third one, I don't use this a lot, but it's near a Kanji black snake. So that thing's a little bit shorter, 6'9", so it's definitely not that standard Swimbait rod sort of spec. Daiwa Z 2020 on that one, again 50 pound castaway and a 60 pound leader. And I've just been using that lately for fishing like chatterbaits, some smaller topwater stuff, and some soft plastics. So it's definitely not my go-to for the cod. Definitely much prefer the 2 Swimbait outfits, but I've always got that thing in the boat as well. I have purchased another reel that arrived from Japan last time I was away, like over the weekend, so I'll do a separate video on that, but it's very schmick, very schmick. Now, lures, I guess. these aren't going to be a surprise to anybody. I think anyone that's cod fishing and has had a decent look around online comes up with these two. Jackal Gantrel, Jackal Guy Gantrel. RT Silver Herrer is that bloke. Wouldn't have a clue what this colour's called. Not really super fussed on colour. I have caught a lot of fish on that. It's definitely a favourite. But I wouldn't be opposed to throwing even weird and wonderful colours at them. I really don't think it makes that much difference in the dark, to be honest. I do swap those hooks over to something a little bit lighter gauge. So they're a Van Fook DT58F. I've got a 2.0 on the front of the Guy Gantrel and a 1.0 on the back. And that fella's running a 1.0 on the front and a 1 on the back. Just small chin weights on them, because you are taking quite heavy gauge hooks off. It does take a little bit of weight out of them. But I've got a 1/8 ounce, no, I don't, I'm lying. I've got a 1/6 ounce chin lock on that fella, and then a 1/12 on the little guy. Oh, that could have been in my legs so bad. Those hooks are so sharp, but it's not. Yeah, I don't really know where I was going with that. I'm more just scared the shit out of myself, thinking I'd done myself a mischief. But yeah, big fan. They sink super slow with those little chin weights on. You can definitely run them without, and they'll sort of track much higher and like almost on the surface. But it's just a lot of wind, pause. So lots of pauses, a couple of cranks of the handle, pause again. Just let that lure sort of slowly snake and turn back. Often cod will like to eat stuff head first. So that lure is snaking along, and what these fellas do is will snake along, and as you stall it, they sort of turn to the side and fish will suck them in. It's a pretty cool bite. The other one I've become quite fond of lately, the only reason this one's in a packet, not rigged and beaten up, is because that one is now no longer with me. I lost it on the weekend. 8-inch mag draft, 10 inches good as well, but I've been catching quite a few fish on the 8 lately. I tend to rig a second treble up on its head and run that on the fluoro like I mentioned earlier. But yeah, become quite a big fan of it in recent times. Why have you turned off? What else did I have on there? I think that covers most of it. Like I say, actually lure clips. Have never really been a big fan of lure clips in the past, but they really are a saving grace on the cod dams. If you do chop and change lures a little bit, even if it's between like a swim bait and a surface lure, you probably can't really see that, but there's just size 4 mustard fast attach clip. So much nicer to use with gloves on than trying to cut leaders and retie, because the only thing worse than trying to retie a lure, like tie a leader under a lure with gloves on, is having to take your gloves off when it's minus something and tie a leader not then. No good. So yeah, the clips are very, very handy. Keeps your leaders a nice long length too. You don't have to keep cutting them each time you change a lure, and they just snap straight onto the little clips on the front, whether they snap onto a clip like that or straight onto the eye of a lure, on the eye of a plastic or a jig head, whatever you're fishing. Makes it nice and simple. Probably the other key thing turning up to the cod dams is get there in plenty of time. It's not always going to be the case. You might arrive over night time, you want to get on the water and fish in the morning, but it can be difficult. The cod dams get dark, especially if you're fishing around new moons. A lot of them are away from sort of any ambient light. So it's going to be dark out there. You need to be careful. There's standing timber in a lot of them. There's rocks in a lot of them. You can do a lot of damage to your boat and yourself if you're a little bit too gung-ho. So wherever possible, get on the water in daylight hours and have a look around. Make sure you've got tracks running on your sounder so that you can sort of go back on the electric in those low light hours or in the dark and follow the track you've been on, so that you know that you're sort of away from any of those structures or whatever that are going to cause damage to you or your boat, but you can still fish and have a look around, because there's been times where you can't see 2 meters past the front of the boat, let alone 10 meters to the side of the bank that you want to be casting at. So get there, be prepared, have a good scout around, run through areas that you want to fish slowly and get a decent track on your sounder just so you've got something to follow back. It makes a huge difference. I think that's pretty well all I wanted to cover. So like I say, there's lots of dudes out there that do great videos about cod. Jacko Davis is one of them. I think it's Dan Webber down south is another that do awesome content around like time of day, lures, stuff that they know works for cod. I didn't really want to delve too far into that apart from a quick sort of run over some gear, but what I really wanted to sort of get across to people is be prepared when you go down. So little things like the tape on your electric motor, knowing your electric motor remotes, that sort of stuff, are things that will go such a long way in helping you stay on the water and fish harder and fish longer when it is cold and when it is dark, and sort of when those demons start to creep in going, oh, it'd be so much nicer in the aircon in a cabin, or how much nicer would it be sitting in front of a fire. If you're sitting in front of a fire, you aren't catching that big cod. It's not going to happen. You need to be on the water. So hopefully there's been a few tips in this that help you stay out there longer and maybe catch that big fish. If there is, let me know. I wouldn't mind doing a few more of these. I feel like I've been lucky enough to do plenty of fishing in my time that I've got a pretty good grasp of a lot of species without tooting my own horn. There's definitely some that I have no idea about, but there's a lot that I do. So if there's a species or technique that you'd like some information sort of shed on, let me know. Drop it in the comments and I'll try and do a video up covering that. But yeah, hopefully if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, it's free. And hopefully we'll see you on the water for the next one. Cheers.
Another one. Tell you that one's done.